For more than 60 years, Bill Gaither has been one of the most respected names in gospel music. He is not just known for his songs, but also for the way he lived his life, guided by faith, love, and hope. Together with the Gaither Vocal Band, he created music that touched millions of people around the world. His lyrics often spoke about God's grace, the struggles of life, and the strength that comes from prayer. Fans saw him not only as a talented artist but also as a symbol of Christian devotion. For decades, he stood beside his wife Marissa, and their marriage was seen as a shining example of love, unity, and trust. To the outside world, they looked inseparable, sharing the stage, singing together, and showing kindness to everyone they met. Their marriage became part of the Gaither legacy, inspiring countless couples who admired their strong bond. But, as time passed, the picture-perfect life that fans saw began to change. What looked like a fairy tale union was hiding silent struggles behind closed doors. Bill Gaither, now at the age of 90, has finally spoken with honesty about those painful years. His story is not just about heartbreak, but also about strength, healing, and the courage to speak the truth when it matters most. When fans watched Bill and Marissa at church gatherings or gospel concerts, they often believed they were witnessing the perfect Christian couple. Their love seemed unshakable, their smiles genuine, and their partnership inspiring. But in reality, every marriage faces challenges, and theirs was no exception. Over time, Bill noticed small changes, fewer conversations at home, less laughter, and a quiet distance forming between them. While he continued pouring his heart into music and ministry, Marissa seemed to grow more distant, focusing on her own projects and showing less interest in their shared mission. Fans started noticing her absence at important events, which led to quiet whispers and questions. Bill, however, tried to convince himself that it was just a phase, something that would pass with time. He still held on to his faith and believed that love could heal anything. But deep down, he knew something had shifted. The once joyful connection had become strained, and the silence between them was heavier than the applause he received on stage. Still, to the public, they kept up appearances, attending events and sharing photos that suggested unity. In reality, however, the emotional gap between them was widening, leaving Bill with a heavy heart and unanswered questions about the future of his marriage. As the distance grew, Bill tried to focus on his work, hoping his passion for gospel music would ease the pain he felt at home. But one day, while reviewing financial documents for an upcoming project, he stumbled upon something that shook him to his core. Hidden among routine papers were records of financial moves he had never approved, large withdrawals, secret bank accounts, and investments that had been made without his knowledge. At first, he thought it was a simple mistake, but as he looked deeper, he realized that these decisions had been kept from him for years. Feeling betrayed, Bill confronted Marissa. What followed was one of the most painful conversations of his life. She admitted to making financial choices on her own, but the money was not the real wound. What cut Bill the most was the secrecy, the loss of trust, and the realization that their partnership was no longer the same. This moment opened the door to deeper truths, including years of emotional distance, unspoken resentments, and the quiet erosion of their bond. Bill, a man known for his loyalty and faith, was left devastated. The woman who had once been his closest partner now felt like a stranger, and the dream they had built together seemed to be crumbling. For years, Bill had told himself that things would get better, that prayer and love would rebuild what was broken. But after the revelations about secrecy and emotional distance, he and Marissa quietly agreed to end their marriage. Unlike many celebrity breakups, there were no public fights, no angry interviews, and no dramatic headlines. Instead, it was a quiet and painful decision made between two people who had once loved each other deeply. They decided to keep the details private, not to fuel gossip, but to protect the dignity of what they once shared. Still, rumors began to spread as fans noticed Marissa's absence and Bill's changed demeanor. Bill chose silence for years, not out of weakness, but out of respect. He focused on his music, his faith, and the process of healing. Ending a marriage that had lasted for decades was like losing a part of himself, and the grief weighed heavily on him. At night, questions haunted him: could he have done more to save it? Did he miss the signs? Was it his fault? For a man who had always preached about love and unity, facing the reality of divorce felt like failure. Yet, in his silence, Bill found strength, learning that not every story has a perfect ending, but every ending can lead to new beginnings. After the divorce, Bill found himself in an unfamiliar place, lonely, grieving, and uncertain about the future. But just as he had done in every difficult season of his life, he turned to the one thing that had always given him strength: music. For Bill, gospel songs were not just melodies, they were prayers in musical form, a bridge between human pain and divine comfort. In the quiet of his home, he sat at the piano and poured out his emotions through new songs. Some were filled with sorrow, others with hope, and many remained private, like personal letters between him and God. These private moments of worship slowly began to heal him, piece by piece. Music reminded him that he still had purpose, that his story was not over. Over time, he began sharing some of those songs with others, allowing fans to see his vulnerability and his strength. The healing did not come quickly, it arrived in small steps, through prayer, support from loved ones, and the realization that life after heartbreak could still hold meaning. Through music, Bill began to rediscover his identity, not just as a singer, but as a man of faith who had survived pain and found peace on the other side. For many years, Bill remained silent about his divorce, choosing not to comment publicly. But as he turned 90, he felt it was time to share his truth. It was not a dramatic confession or a bitter attack on his ex-wife, but a gentle and heartfelt message. He explained that he had carried the pain quietly for too long and that speaking honestly was the only way to move forward. In interviews, he talked about love, disappointment, betrayal, and healing. He admitted his own shortcomings, acknowledging that balancing a demanding career with a personal life is never easy. His honesty touched fans deeply. For decades, they had admired him for his music, but now they admired him even more for his courage. They saw not just a gospel legend, but a man who had lived through heartbreak and found grace in the process. His openness reminded people that even strong, faithful individuals face storms, but with truth and faith, healing is possible. Breaking his silence was not about gossip or attention, it was about setting himself free and encouraging others to face their own struggles with honesty and hope. When Bill finally spoke out, the reactions were filled with compassion. Letters, emails, and messages poured in from fans who wanted to show their support. Some shared their own experiences with divorce, while others simply offered prayers and words of encouragement. Church leaders reached out to comfort him, not with judgment, but with kindness. In a world where public figures are often criticized harshly, Bill found himself surrounded by grace. This support reminded him that his worth was not defined by his marriage but by his faith, his music, and the love he had shared with the world for so many years. The Christian community stood by him, proving that even in moments of personal failure, compassion can shine brighter than criticism. This outpouring of love gave Bill the courage to keep moving forward. It reminded him that he was not alone and that just as his music had comforted others, now others were comforting him. In this spiritual exchange, Bill discovered new strength, showing the world that brokenness does not end a person's journey, it reshapes it into something even more powerful. Reaching the age of 90 is a milestone that few achieve, and Bill Gaither has chosen to use this stage of his life to inspire others in a new way. Despite the pain of divorce, he refuses to let his story end in sorrow. Instead, he sees this season as a chance for growth, honesty, and renewed purpose. He now speaks openly at events, not only about music but also about life, faith, and resilience. He mentors younger gospel artists, reminding them that success is not just about singing but about living with integrity and authenticity. His story shows that even after loss, it is possible to rise again with strength and dignity. Fans who have followed him for decades now see him not as a flawless figure, but as a real man who faced heartbreak and still found hope. Bill Gaither's journey is a reminder that no matter how late in life, it is never too late to tell the truth, to forgive, and to keep moving forward. His courage to speak out at 90 makes his legacy even more inspiring, not just as a gospel singer, but as a man who chose faith, honesty, and love above all else. As Bill looked back on his life, he realized that the story of his marriage was not only about pain, but also about lessons that could help others. He understood now that love, no matter how strong, needs constant nurturing. Marriage is not only about smiles on stage or shared memories, it is about communication, openness, and daily choices to stay connected. For years, Bill admitted that he had poured so much of himself into his career and ministry that he sometimes overlooked the quiet signals at home. He was not ashamed to acknowledge that even with good intentions, mistakes can happen when balance is lost. He shared these reflections with honesty, not to blame Marissa or himself, but to remind others that relationships require attention and care. One of the most powerful lessons he learned was the importance of speaking the truth, even when it hurts. Silence, he realized, had been one of his greatest struggles. By staying quiet about his pain for so long, he carried a burden that weighed him down. Now, at 90, he encourages others never to hide behind silence, but to face reality with courage. He teaches that forgiveness is not about forgetting, but about letting go of bitterness so the heart can heal. Bill's reflections remind people everywhere that love is precious, but it is also fragile, and that true faith means accepting both joy and sorrow with grace. These lessons, born from a lifetime of triumphs and struggles, are now a gift he offers to others walking through their own storms. Today, Bill Gaither stands as more than just a gospel legend. He is a living testimony of resilience, truth, and faith. His journey shows that even those who seem the strongest are not immune to heartbreak, but what matters most is how one chooses to respond. At 90, instead of hiding from the past, Bill has embraced it with honesty and turned his story into a message of hope. He continues to sing, mentor, and inspire, proving that age does not limit impact. Younger gospel artists look to him not only for musical guidance but also for wisdom about life and integrity. Fans who once admired his songs now admire the man behind them, seeing someone who faced trials yet refused to be defined by them. His legacy is no longer only about the music he created but about the truth he finally shared. He reminds people that faith does not protect us from pain but gives us strength to overcome it. He shows that love, even when it ends, still carries beauty in the memories it leaves behind. And most importantly, he teaches that it is never too late to speak your truth and begin again. For millions who have followed his career, Bill Gaither's life is now more than a gospel journey. It is a powerful reminder that grace, honesty, and resilience can carry us through even the darkest chapters. His story at 90 is not just about divorce rumors, it is about hope, courage, and the unshakable power of faith to heal. After years of silence, Bill also realized that divorce was not only about two people separating, it was about the ripple effect it left behind. Family members, close friends, and even colleagues in the gospel music world had struggled with unanswered questions. Some felt distant from Bill because they did not know how to approach him, while others quietly hurt alongside him. When he finally decided to speak openly about his marriage struggles, he began to rebuild these broken connections. His children, who had always admired him as both a father and a musician, respected his courage even more after he shared his truth. They saw in him a man who was not afraid to be vulnerable, even at 90. Friends who once kept their distance returned with open hearts, offering love and support. By being transparent, Bill gave those around him permission to be honest about their own struggles too. He created an atmosphere of healing, where conversations were no longer about hiding pain but about finding strength through it. For Bill, this reconciliation was just as important as his music career because it reminded him that relationships, though sometimes fragile, can be rebuilt with time, humility, and forgiveness. His willingness to reconnect became another testimony of faith in action, showing that even broken bonds can be restored with honesty and love. Perhaps the most surprising part of Bill's late-in-life revelation was the overwhelming response from fans around the world. Instead of judgment, he received letters, emails, and messages filled with encouragement and love. Many fans admitted that they too had gone through divorce, heartbreak, or family struggles, and Bill's honesty gave them comfort. They no longer saw him only as a gospel legend on a stage, but as a human being who understood their pain. Concert halls and gatherings where he appeared were now filled with even deeper emotion, as people connected not just with his music but with his life story. Some said that hearing him speak about his marriage struggles helped them save their own relationships, while others found the courage to let go of guilt they had carried for years. This unwavering support reminded Bill that his ministry had never been only about music, it was about touching hearts. At 90, he realized that fans did not love him because he was perfect, but because he was real. They saw in him a reflection of their own struggles and victories, and this made his legacy even stronger. Bill's openness proved that the bond between an artist and his audience can go far beyond the stage, becoming a source of healing and hope for countless lives.